Describing the sick moral atmosphere, Zola used a striking image: a shameful terror reigns, the bravest turn cowards, and no one dares say what he thinks for fear of being denounced as a traitor and a bribe taker. The few newspapers which at first stood out for justice are now crawling in the dust before their readers. He returned to this theme in his letter to the French nation, asking his fellow citizens to consider, are you aware that the danger lies precisely in this somber obstinacy of public opinion? 100 newspapers repeat daily that public opinion does not wish the innocence of Dreyfus, that his guilt is necessary to the safety of the country. And do you know to what point you yourself will be guilty, should those in authority take advantage of such a sophism to stifle the truth? Never one to be abstract in his analysis of society, Zola exposed the almost sadomasochistic relationship that existed between insecure mobs and their adulation of strong men, and the military. Examine your conscience. Was it in truth your army which you wished to defend when none were attacking it? Was it not rather the sword that you felt the sudden need of extolling? At bottom, yours is not yet the real Republican blood. The sight of a plumed helmet still makes your heart beat quicker. No king can come amongst us but you fall in love with him. It is not of your army that you are thinking, but of the general who happens to have caught your fancy. Finest of all in my opinion was Zola's direct and measured indictment of the complicity of the Church. And do you know where else you walk France? You go to the Church of Rome, you return to that past of intolerance and theocracy against which the greatest of your children fought. tactics of the anti-Semites are very simple. Catholicism, seeking in vain to influence the people, founded workmen's clubs and multiplied pilgrimages. It failed to win them back or lead them again to the foot of the altar. The question seemed definitely settled, the churches remained empty, the people had lost their faith. And behold, circumstances have occurred which make it possible to infect them with an anti-Semitic fury, and having been poisoned with this virus of fanaticism, they are launched upon the streets to shout down with the Jews. Death to the Jews. When the people of France have been changed into fanatics and torturers, when their generosity and love of the rights of man, conquered with so much difficulty, have been rooted up out of their hearts, then no doubt God will do the rest. This was Seva indignatio of a quality not seen since Swift himself. So that by the time Zola addressed himself, on the front page of L'Aurore, to President Félix Fauré, he was only completing the details of his bill of indictment, and accusing a syndicate of reactionaries of committing a double crime, that of framing an innocent man and acquitting a guilty one. It's always as well to remember, when considering miscarriages of justice, as the authorities so neutrally and quaintly like to call them, that the framing of the innocent axiomatically involves the exculpation of the guilty. This is abortion, not miscarriage. Read Zola with care and you will be less astonished by the follies and crimes from Verdun to Vichy, that later overtook France, and indeed overtook an entire Europe of show trials and camps and martial parades and infallible leaders. You will also understand better why it is that the papacy, which now You will also understand better why it is that the papacy, which now seems to try again almost every day, can never manage an honest or clear statement on its history with Jews, Protestants, and unbelievers. And all of this can be derived from one determined and principled individual exercising his right to say no, and insisting, as Zola successfully did, on his day, not in court, as we again too neutrally say, but in the dock. Another observation from antiquity has it that, while courage is not in itself one of the primary virtues, it is the quality that makes the exercise of the virtues possible. Again, this removes it from the strict province of the intellectual. Galileo may have made a discovery that overthrew the complacent cosmology of the Church Fathers, but when threatened with the instruments of torture he also made a swift recantation. The sun and the planets were, of course, unaffected by this disavowal, and the latter continued to revolve around the former whatever the Vatican said. Galileo himself, as he finished his recantation, may or may not have murmured, "Eppur si muove," it still does move. But he furnishes us with an example of objective free inquiry, rather than a heretical courage. Others had to be courageous on his behalf, as Zola had to be brave on behalf of Dreyfus. Incidentally, it now seems more and more certain that Zola was murdered in his bed, rather than accidentally stifled by a faulty fire in a blocked chimney, further proof that great men are most frequently not honored in their own time or country. I think often of my late friend Ron Ridenour, who became briefly famous when, as an American serviceman in Vietnam, he collected and exposed the evidence of the hideous massacre of the villagers at My Lai in March 1968. One of the hardest things for anyone to face is the conclusion that his or her own side is in the wrong when engaged in a war. The pressure to keep silent and be a team player is reinforceable by the accusations of cowardice or treachery that will swiftly be made against dissenters. Sinister phrases of coercion, such as stabbing in the back or giving ammunition to the enemy, have their origin in this dilemma and are always available to help compel unanimity. For resisting this, and for insisting that American officers and men be bound by the customary laws of war, Ron Ridenour put many people in safer positions to shame. It probably helped, as he once told me, that he himself was the son of a poor white Arizona good old boy family, rather than a bookish or pointy-headed bleeding heart. It all began, in his recollection, when as an uneducated draftee he was lying in his bunk and overheard a group of fellow enlisted men planning a nighttime assault on the only black soldier in the hut. Ron said that he sat up in his own bunk, and heard himself saying, "If you want to do that, you have to come through me." As so often, the determination of one individual was enough to dishearten those whose courage was mob-derived. But remember, until the crucial moment arrived he had no idea that he was going to behave in this way. In my life I have had the privilege and luck of meeting and interviewing a number of brave dissidents in many and various countries and societies. Very frequently, they can trace their careers which partly chose them rather than being chosen by them, to an incident in early life where they felt obliged to make or take a stand. Sometimes, too, a precept is offered and takes root. Bertrand Russell in his autobiography reports that his rather fearsome Puritan grandmother gave me a Bible with her favorite text written on the fly-leaf. Among these was, "Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil." Her emphasis upon this text led me in later life to be not afraid of belonging to small minorities. It's rather affecting to find the future hammer of the Christians being confirmed in this way. It also proves that sound maxims can appear in the least probable places. Quite often, the baptism of a future dissenter occurs in something unplanned, such as a spontaneous resistance to an episode of bullying or bigotry, or a challenge to some piece of pedagogical stupidity. There is good reason to think that such reactions arise from something innate rather than something inculcated. Nickleby doesn't know until the moment of the crisis that he is going to stick up for poor Smike. Noam Chomsky recalls hearing the news of the obliteration of Hiroshima as a young man, and experiencing the need to go off and find solitude because there was nobody he felt he could talk to. reason to think that such reactions arise from something innate rather than something inculcated. Nickleby doesn't know until the moment of the crisis that he is going to stick up for poor Smike. Noam Chomsky recalls hearing the news of the obliteration of Hiroshima as a young man, and experiencing the need to go off and find solitude because there was nobody he felt he could talk to. It would be encouraging to believe that such reactions are innate, because then we can be certain that they will continue to occur, and will not depend for their occurrence upon the transmission of good examples or morality tales. It may be that you, my dear X, recognize something of yourself in these instances, a disposition to resistance, however slight, against arbitrary authority or witless mass opinion, or a thrill of recognition when you encounter some well-wrought phrase from a free intelligence. If so, let us continue to correspond so that I may draw from your experience even as you flatter me by asking to draw upon mine. For the moment, do bear in mind that the cynics have a point, of a sort, when they speak of the professional naysayer. To be in opposition is not to be a nihilist. And there is no decent or charted way of making a living at it.